Dean Rusk disagrees with you, and he was the Secretary of State at the time, but that's fine.
The communist nations have exploited the turmoil of a time of transition in an effort to extend communist control into other areas of the world.
Thoughts on Dean Rusk and America's involvement in Vietnam? I know next to nothing about that.
Exactly. Well, after having a conversation with an individual on Twitter who seems to be responding via things that he had just looked up 5 minutes ago, I thought I would take the time and introduce to Normies the vast idiocy that was the Russiagate fiasco. Now, for the 5 people who actually usually watch me, you probably know all this already, and you can turn this off now. And yes, this individual was correct that Carter Page was not a Russian asset, was not a Russian spy of any kind. This is usually the litmus test that you can put out a feeler for to see if you're talking to somebody who's serious, somebody who's done like a little bit of research. Like before they answer you, they do a quick Google, a quick Grok question, a quick wiki search. That yes, Carter. If somebody is telling you that Carter Page is still accusing Carter Page of being a spy, you know you're either talking to somebody who is unserious, or somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, or somebody who's just in flat-out denial. But let's go over Russiagate. There are many problems with Russiagate. Its investigators and the people that they investigated. Now, according to the FBI, according to its lead investigator, Operation Crossfire Hurricane, investigating Donald Trump, starts when an individual who worked for the Trump campaign named Papadopoulos tells Downer, an Australian diplomat, that the Russians have Hillary's emails. Downer remembers this conversation because Donald Trump makes a speech and he says, Russia, if you're listening and you have those emails, please release them. A tongue-in-cheek joke. I get it. You don't like when the man jokes. It's terrible. It's horrible. There's a problem, though, is that Downer tells the FBI, you can grok and wiki and do all your searches that you want for this. Downer tells the FBI this information a day before Trump makes the speech. It's so bad that the lead investigator, when cornered on it, the guy who wrote the book Compromised, Mr. Peter Stork himself, has to change the reason in a public statement about his own book. Now, to understand how absolutely absurd this is, you have to understand how investigations work. When you're investigating something, the most important thing, if I may talk with my hands ridiculously, is day one of the investigation. What happened? We were sitting in our office, somebody walked in, we were reviewing somebody's emails on a different case, this came up, we were reviewing bank statements, and something fishy came up. Your number one thing that you have to figure out is, how did we get this info? And he fucked up day one of the investigation. He fucked up how he started his investigation. The other problem that you have with this story, and you'll see this theme throughout this entire fiasco, that the investigators are either completely inept or completely corrupt, and the people that they're investigating, who they are claiming are Russians or tied to Russians, usually aren't Russians or tied to Russians, including, as you noted, Mr. Carter Page himself. One of the biggest fiascos of the Russiagate entire investigation. But this again all starts because you claim that certain parts of the Steele dossier, by the way, were accurate. None of that is true. But back to this investigation. The number one question you have to ask yourself is, who told Papadopoulos that the Russians had Hillary's emails? Further, Downer says, I never said emails. I said dirt. Somebody else later added emails. Grok and wiki that too. See if that's accurate. He gets this information from an individual named Mifsud. Mifsud is a professor and a Western intel asset. I don't care what you read in whatever media sources you tell you. He's a Western intel. His job, his entire career, was to train people who worked in places like the FBI, the Italian agencies, British MI5 or MI6, was to train security individuals and giving them diplomatic classes, how to work around the diplomatic community. He worked for Western intel assets. That's what he did. His entire career, that's what he did. If he's a Russian spy, this is bigger than Hansen. There needs to be a complete overhaul of the Italian intelligence services, the British intelligence services, and the American intelligence services, who even during this fiasco still sent their agents over there to be trained by him. What were they, all undercover, trying to see if maybe they could get something on him? Was there an operation where they were running a wire on him because he turned out to be a Russian? He's not Russian. He never was Russian. Yes, he has contacts with Russian because he works in the diplomatic field. Now, when it comes to the investigators, I believe it was Jim Jordan asked him, it's in the Mueller report. He said, where did Papadopoulos get this info from? It's in the Mueller report. Mifsud's name is in there. Do you know what Mueller says? Something along the lines of, that's not really under my purview. Oh, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. Mueller's big time. Rachel Maddow was going crazy. We're going to learn the truth about Russiagate. And he gets up in front of fucking the Senate Judiciary Committee, makes an absolute ass of himself. The entire couple of hours that he's there, he's saying, that's not under my purview. I can't really talk about that. What do you mean you can't talk about that? It's in your report. You can't talk about something that's in your report? It almost looked like this individual had no idea what was in his own report. That's unbelievable. That slimy little fuck. So, Mifsud works for a Western intel asset, tells Papadopoulos bullshit. Papadopoulos then tells the bullshit to Downer, who then tells the FBI, who starts investigating the bullshit. Is that what's happening? Are we burning the candles at both ends? It turns out in a later report that the Central Intelligence Agency admitted that it had about 25 or 26 targets of the Trump administration that they were going to do this entrapment scheme to. 25 or 26 of them. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's 26. So we're inventing entrapment schemes where no crime is being committed. So it can't be that this investigation of Operation Crossfire Hurricane starts on the date that the lead investigator claims that it was. This lead investigator, by the way, is an extremely biased individual. Through texts with his guma, with the person that he's cheating on his wife with, another FBI flunky, Lisa Page, who lies on Michael Flynn's 302s, I think is what it's called. Every time you talk to somebody in the FBI, you got to fill out one of these paperwork. She goes back and alters it, by the way. There's a great t-shirt out there with Lisa Page's face on it. It said, we'll alter 302s for fun. And in this conversation, they're talking about something like a backup plan. We can't let him win. We won't let this happen. And it doesn't sound like they're talking about going out there and moving the vote. What would this something be that would actually start this investigation? It would be this Steele dossier garbage nonsense. Now, as I was talking to this individual, he used lawyerly weird bullshit talk to try to absolve Hillary Clinton, who had to pay a fucking fine because she tried to pass off the Steele dossier to the FBI as an intel document. By the way, we have something that's worth the national security of the nation. You must know this, FBI. So she hires law firm Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS, and there's all these walls and shells between her and Michael Steele and the number one subsource of the Steele dossier, a Mr. Danchenko. Now, maybe I called him a Russian spy. Maybe he's not a Russian spy because he's a Beltway hack. In fact, the people who were looking for him to try to find his name were surprised that he was not an FSB member. He's not old enough to remember the KGB. He's a fucking zilch. He's a Beltway zilch. But when he worked for the Brookings Institution, two of his colleagues told the Federal Bureau of Investigation that this individual, Danchenko, tried to get them to give info to him to give to the Russians. So Hillary Clinton paid Perkins Coie, paying Fusion GPS to pay Michael Steele to pay a Russian who was being investigated for collusion, for no better word, to accuse the Trump administration of Russian collusion. Fuck me. She pays a $100,000 fine for this. And no, it's not an accounting error where you moved over a comma or you didn't cross a T or dot an I. You were hiding that what you were pushing to the FBI was not a national security interest, was opposition political research. That's why you paid a $100,000 fine. You didn't pay a $100,000 fine for moving a comma in the wrong direction. It's not a bookkeeping accident. Whoopsie! I'm so sorry that my comma means I hid that I was funding this piece of shit document, which has never been proven, any single part of it. Now, I'm not sure if the Alpha Bank fiasco is also part of the Steele dossier. It's 35 pages off the top of my head. But it turns out that every claim of Russiagating bullshit is Russiagating bullshit. The Alpha Bank scandal was that the Trump administration was talking to Russians either through Alpha Bank or that Alpha Bank itself was a Russian bank. Somebody at the NSA says that, you know what? There's these messages going from Trump administration to Alpha Bank and the Russians. It turned out to be spam. That's what that was. These genius investigators clawing and trying to find something. Now, as you admitted, this individual that I was talking to, Carter Page is in fact not a Russian asset. This is a big deal since the FBI lied to the FISA court 17 times when it came to Carter Page and trying to get a warrant on him. The way that warrants work is that when you get up on a warrant, you get to listen to that individual, two people he's talking to, and two people they're talking to. Which means the entire Trump administration was being bugged and spied on once they got the FISA warrant on Carter Page. Now, how exactly did they lie to get Carter Page under surveillance? How did they lie and call him a Russian asset? Well, he talks to a lot of Russians. And so the FBI asked this individual named Kleinsmith, an FBI lawyer, not a low-level fucking year one gumshoe out of fucking Wyoming, a lawyer whose job it is to make sure that everyone's on the books and doing things correctly. This is not a low-level individual. They tell him to ask the Central Intelligence Agency to see if he's a CIA asset. Maybe that's why he's talking to so many Russians. The CIA sends him back an email that says, yes, he's a CIA asset. He lies, and he says that the CIA told him that he's not a CIA asset. Now, you might read in the mainstream media that, again, just like Hillary Clinton had a bookmarking mistake where she maybe missed a comma, they call this altering an email. Now, when somebody tells you something and you interpret it fraudulently as the opposite of something that somebody told you, that's not a slight alteration. That's lying. It's fraud. He lied. Now you have to ask yourself, if indeed the Federal Bureau of Investigation has anything on Donald Trump, why would Kleinsmith feel the need to lie to the FISA court about Carter Page? I'm just asking you a question. This isn't written in the ODNI. It's not written in the Horowitz report. It's not written in the Durham report. And it's not written in the Mueller report. I'm asking you a question. If the FBI has Donald Trump dead to rights when it comes to Russian collusion, why does Kleinsmith feel the need to lie about Carter Page? And yes, he lied. He didn't alter an email. He lied. I'm not sure how many more investigators I can run through or how many suspects I can run through off the top of my head, but I'm going to. We have Paul Manafort who they're coming after in the Steele dossier and all over the place. Manafort ends up actually going away to jail for fraud. Well, Manafort's problems start in Ukraine when a black ledger shows up with allegedly bribe payments written down, because that's what criminals do. We write things down like a checkbook. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Allegedly payments to Manafort. The black ledger later in Ukrainian news turns out to be complete bullshit. But that's only picked up in Ukraine. For some reason, it's not picked up in the United States. This kicks off an investigation into Mr. Manafort, who ends up going away for tax fraud and other reasons, never goes away for Russian collusion. Now, somebody who works for Manafort named Konstantin Kalimnik is called by the Mueller team a Russian spy. Why? Allegedly, Mr. Kalimnik gave the Russians polling data, internal polling data. There's a couple of problems here. One, the only people who make this claim is the Treasury Department. No one knows who at Treasury said this. No one knows why they said this. No one knows what the evidence there is for this. As far as normal, sane people looking at this giant picture of a bunch of fucking corrupt investigators, that's what Kleinsmith is, that's what Mueller is, that's what Comey is, that's what Stork is, that's what Lisa Page is. These are corrupt actors. Flat out. There could be other agents working on this case, like the individuals who tried to entrap Carter Page by asking him, hey, do you want to sell anything to the Russians? Yes, the FBI sent people to Carter Page, according to the Dome report, to try to entrap him, to say, would you like to sell information to the Russians? Those people are probably just following orders, but their lead investigators are corrupt. They're not just making mistakes, they're corrupt, and they're doing a political investigation against their political opposition. That's what they're doing. That's exactly what this whole thing is. Konstantin Kalimnik, again, another person accused of being a Russian, is a Ukrainian nationalist, State Department asset. Apparently, these fucking people have no problem burning Western assets, rolling them over, throwing them under the bus, be it Mifsud, be it Kalimnik, and using Russian assets to do it, or suspected Russian assets like Danchenko to prove some kind of Russian collusion. He is so valued at the State Department that his handlers leave his name out of diplomatic cables for fear of discovery. They don't want the Russians to learn his name. When the Russians invade Ukraine, he helps them in trying to stop this, what he refers to as madness and the tearing up of his own country. This is who the FBI threw under the bus. This Ukrainian nationalist. You claim you want to be for the Ukrainian cause? Apparently not. Apparently these people will throw anybody under the bus. State Department asset for years. And another case, that if this person is a Russian spy, then you have bigger problems on your hands. No evidence that he passed off polling data, except for one source in the Treasury Department that later the FBI themselves walked back. So you don't have Manafort because you don't have Kalimnik. You never had Carter Page. Peter Stork, your lead investigator, can't tell you when the actual investigation started. He's extremely biased in his little texts with his fucking gumad. He should never have been on this investigation. That is an extremely biased individual. Hated the subject that he was investigating. That's not what an impartial investigator looks like. You have James Comey, who's now going up for a small thing of lying if he leaked. You have Robert Mueller, who's just a complete mess and who has nothing. You have the Steele dossier funded by Hillary Clinton with Clinton operatives within the dossier. There's an individual with this whole bullshit story about Trump renting a hotel room that Obama used to be in and got two hookers to pee on a bed. This is a bullshit story. Excuse me, I may have said that the Australian diplomat's name was Dolan. His name was Downer. This individual's name is Dolan. And he's a Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton pays for a dossier, has her own people fill it with sources, and then tries to pass it off to the FBI as a fucking intel document. That's what that woman did. Mrs. You're all deplorables. I hate every last one of you. Mrs. You know what I'm talking about. White Christian men. Oh! This woman lost to a fucking game show host. Yeah. I mean, one that I voted for. But still a game show host. That's how bad she was. She's like in the political class, and they picked this fucking carny, who worked out great, whom I love, who's wonderful. He's a showman. Fantastic. I love it. I can't believe he won. He did. That's who she lost to. There's no way that we could have known how great it could have been. This is Russiagate for you. A bag of fucking vicious, viperous, fucking corrupt snakes doing political investigations against individuals that they don't like. Now, I'm trying to remember if there's any other angles of this. I've covered Manafort. I've covered Carter Page. I've covered Downer, Mifsud, every single individual who they thought. The great Trump Tower meeting. Another great. There's nowhere where there's actual Russians, by the way. There's this individual named Goldstone, who by himself apparently is playing entrapment games and go like, I know somebody in Russia. I'm going to go talk to the Trump team and see if they want to talk to somebody in Russia. Not an actual Russian. Trump Tower meeting. The woman they're going to meet. Not an actual Russian spy. She's actually in the middle of talking to Fusion GPS. The people who are writing the Steele dossier, in the middle of her interview, claiming that there's Russian collusion, stops the interview to go across town to go to this Trump Tower meeting. Talk about entrapment on top of entrapment. It's so bad that Fusion GPS has to say in interviews like, yeah, no, I don't know what that's about. That's really crazy. Because it's not like they sent her there. There's a woman claiming to be a relative of Putin hanging around Papadopoulos. The FBI is on record for saying that they're going to send honeypots into the Trump administration. Hot women claiming to be Russian assets. What the fuck? What the ever-living, loving fuck do these fucking people think they're doing? By the way, this is, while there's real threats to the nation and the republic, while they're fucking wasting their time doing this. There was nothing to the Steele dossier. The fucking Russiagate thing was a hoax from day one. You can't name a Russian that was colluding. And all the investigators are corrupt, vile pieces of shit. I hope I've helped inform you. You can fact check anything that I've said, and you can get back to me if you would like. That is my introduction to Russiagate for Normies. Thank you for your time.
To negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.